right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Digging In with TPS-MTSU webinar of the new school year. We're really excited to have everyone with us and hope everyone is having great first days back to school. I know the first days are always a little chaotic and everyone just hopes to survive that first week or so. So hopefully this is going as smoothly as possible for you and your students. As we get started today, just a few quick reminders. One, of course, that we are recording this for inclusion on our YouTube channel. So if you would, please be sure to keep your mics muted. And again, make sure we know, you've renamed yourself. And again, if you're able to join us live for a session, we do love to make these as interactive as possible. So feel free to open the chat box. Ask questions. I know we've got a few things that we're going to ask folks today as we discuss some of our favorite things. And if you are watching this later on, know that again, that is one of the perks to joining live is that again, we do try to make these interactive as we are going through. And as always, again, with this series, we do have a Padlet page where we just keep adding new resources that go along with this webinar series. So you can access that via this link or QR code. And again, that will get you information for all of the digging ins that we have done going back now for what, almost 4 school years, I believe. It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. So again, there's a lot of great stuff that is there. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Stacy to talk to us a little bit about what we're talking about this month as we get going.
Great, thanks, Kira. Uh, Excuse me for a second. I am going to share my screen and we will take a look at this month's newsletter. But first, I want to go back a couple months because, of course, we suspend these webinars during the summertime because we know that you're scattered far and wide, and kind of we are too. So I wanted to show you very, very briefly the issues that we did over the summer that we did not do digging in webinars for. And so if you can always access these because they're always archived, of course, on our newsletters page, and many of you would have gotten them sent to you directly, whether you checked your school email this summer or not. And it was probably buried in your inboxes. That's fine. Just go straight to our website, click on the newsletters link, and you will see that over in June, we highlighted our favorite Library of Congress collections because, of course, all of the primary sources that you can access digitally from the website of the Library of Congress are organized into different thematic collections. And so we just kind of focused on a few of these. And so very quickly, I'm going to show you. Of course, we always have additional things on page one. One of our favorite WPA posters. That's a really great collection. The Farm Security Administration Office of War Information has 2 collections. Those are these fantastic Great Depression of World War II era photographs. There's a giant collection that has the most stuff, which is black and white. That's like 200,000 images. But there's a smaller collection focusing on those images that have been colorized. And so it's kind of organized as a separate collection. And so that's where you get this image and similar ones too. So we did a feature on the Sanborn maps where we linked to one of our webinars that we did on how to use these maps, looking at case studies of how you can integrate these into the classroom. And then we looked at, of course, specific, is this the collections one? Yes. Okay. So this is the Prokudin-Gorsky collection, which you may forget his name, but just remember it's the guy who took pictures of the Russian Empire around the turn of the 20th century. And he had a really interesting colorization technique as well that makes his photographs look incredibly crisp and detailed and not as old as they actually are, and just all sorts of different kinds of focuses on architecture, ethnic diversity, transportation, people at work. So those of you teaching world history and geography at the high school level might really find this one useful. Kira talks about panoramic maps, which we love to use. You can bring in so many different interdisciplinary areas for this. This is great for Tennessee history. Any ages can use these maps, so it's great K through 12. Ken, one of our graduate student assistants, is highlighting American Leaders Speak recordings from World War I, where students can listen to voice recordings of different leaders, including FDR. And that's a different way to learn about history. So that one focuses on that. And then, of course, we have page 4. We always have additional examples. And then in July, we looked at our favorite exhibitions. So we're on a favorite streak, in case you didn't notice. Exhibitions, sometimes tied in with collections, but another really great way to tell a story using primary sources with very small, easy to digest chunks of secondary source context that helps explain to students the significance of what they're looking at. So I really like exhibitions for being very accessible for people to get the history. The newest one we highlight here, Collecting Memories, Treasures from the Library of Congress, Thomas Jefferson's Library. And then, of course, we have a featured feature about the Tennessee Council for History Education Conference, which is happening in just 1 month, which I'll let Kira mention again later on. African American Odyssey. This has been one of our favorites for nigh on 15, 16, whatever, how many years now. This is a very old exhibition, but it still just is really great at telling the story through so many different amazing primary sources, including this one, which is usually covered by copyright, the Ramar Bearden print. He's a very important African-American artist. But because you can access it through the exhibition, this is one of those thumbnails that will actually be available to you in a larger JPEG that you can use in your classroom only because of the exhibition. Same with a lot of her blocks cartoons. They're not available through the collections in larger JPEGs, only through the exhibitions. And there's like 5 or 6 different exhibitions on her block. Our most favorite political cartoonist from the Library of Congress. And so this talks about that. And especially when you're doing any kind of 20th century history, you're going to want to use her block. And then those of you who teach world history out there, particularly you 6th and 7th grade teachers, World Treasures of the Library of Congress has some great sources that you can bring in to your social studies classes for that. And so this shows you some good examples for that. And then page 4, of course, we have more. So that's what we did not cover through the summer. And so we're picking it up with staff favorites. And so you can see we are on a favorites streak. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this month's newsletter, Staff Favorites. And this is where we look at materials that we have created in the past, whether they're from newsletters or any other part of our website. And we highlight them because we realize you may have noticed them a long time ago, but maybe you forgot because we create a lot of content and you have a lot of other things in your life. So we like to kind of dredge these back up. Sometimes if they have broken links, this gives us a chance to fix those links and just kind of remind ourselves as well as you some of the really cool stuff that you can work with and adapt for your classrooms. And so the links in this blurb here, there too, you can see we're on volume 4. That means we have 3 previous volumes. And so they're all linked from staff favorites issues. So you can see we have February 2019, August 2021, and August 2022. Well, apparently this is a good thing to do in the August because again, you're busy, everybody's busy in August getting back to school. And in fact, MTSU starts back to school in just a couple weeks. And so we're preparing for that chaos too. Okay, and one thing though, with the Nota Bene hand, if there are lesson ideas that you would like us to update and include in staff favorites, you can always email us. Newsletters Unlike everything else on our website, we don't actually update the links on the newsletters because the newsletters are attached to specific dates and time, and because there's just so many of them and so few of us. So unfortunately, a lot of our newsletters will have broken links because the Library of Congress just changes this website all the time, and we can't keep on top of that. Please don't be discouraged if you find newsletter lesson ideas that you really want to use, but you encounter a lot of broken links, or you want us to kind of expand on or tell you, kind of explain where we got these from. Email us. We'd be happy to help you track down the updated links. Sometimes it's, sometimes we're familiar with what the Library of Congress website has done with that kind of material. So it might take us a bit less time, and sometimes, it doesn't, but we'll try to help you with that. Then the awesome source of the month is highlighting another lesson idea, which it didn't need any updating in terms of links. I like it because it has a scavenger hunt worksheet that you can use to do a fun kind of find these things on this world map. So those of you teaching 7th grade, this would be a fun thing to do when you get to the age of exploration at the end of the year. And I'm excited because my daughter just started 7th grade yesterday. So I get to go through that curriculum with her if she shares it with me, which she may not. She may completely just shut me out of it. But anyway, we'll see. Okay, so I am going to highlight the one that I worked on for this month, which was a really old lesson idea that I created back in 2013 for our westward migration issue called Living in a Sod House. And at that time, some of you people who have been using the Library of Congress website for a long time may remember American Memory, which was the original website presentation for the Library of Congress primary sources until they got the rest of their website kind of up and running. And but has been phased out since the past 15 years. But they had some really good collections that were partnerships with specific organizations across the country. And so it's kind of sad that those collections are no longer available through the Library of Congress, but you can sometimes still find those primary sources through that partnering organization's website if their website is easy to find and easy to search. So I did that with the Nebraska State Historical Society and refound some of these sod house images that you can use if you're teaching westward migration. Particularly the Homestead Act of 1862, which is one of the curricular connections. So the Library of Congress had a collection named after one settler in particular, and you can see this is a really, really old web page that used to be connected to that collection that has since gone away. But you can tell how kind of outdated it looks. There was a letters from Uriah Oblinger. Luckily, that is an unusual enough name that it was easy for me to Google. And so I was able to find a lot of that stuff through the Nebraska State Historical Society's website, which is now called History Nebraska. And then they partnered with a lot of other similar organizations to create a website called Digital Horizons, Life on the Northern Plains. And that's where you can find a lot of these colorized photographs of people with their sod houses. So if you just kind of, all you have to do is go through a few pages and you'll already have like a dozen images. And sorry, this is being a little bit slow here. Yes, it's being a little bit slow, pardon me. I think this one has a funny caption here, waiting for the right girls to come along. So you have these two very dapperly dressed men standing in front of a very rustic looking sod house. And, the caption is kind of poking fun at them for being bachelors waiting for the women settlers to come. Because oftentimes, as with Uriah Oblinger, the men would travel out first and they would claim their homestead, and then they would write letters and send money back home and send for their wives and families. And then they would come out, and then the wives would begin their long, long battles against the dirt and bugs and stuff inside these houses. Okay, and so a lot of this was just kind of finding these images again, updating some links, and giving you kind of new places to look for these sources. So for example, there's a letter written by the first wife of Uriah Oblinger about what it's like to live in a log house, and from 1873. And so this is the full letter that is full of bad punctuation. In fact, no punctuation pretty much. But you can see down at the bottom where it says it's from the American Memory Library of Congress, and then it just takes you back to this link that no longer exists. But luckily, these other websites borrowed from the American Memory Collection before that one went away, and now they preserve some of these materials here. But yes, you can find a shorter, better punctuated version of that letter. Here he is writing to her, and then here she is writing to her brother back east. So that is that. I'm going to let Kira tell you about a couple of those. I do want to mention that Ken, one of our graduate students who is working with us, he highlighted the confrontation at City Hall, part of the Nashville sit-ins of 1960 involving Diane Nash and the then mayor of Nashville, Ben West. So he is re-highlighting that. It has a really wonderful 5-minute newsreel that is available at the Library of Congress website now, even though it is courtesy of NBC News, where it's talking about this incident, this confrontation at City Hall. And then while it's talking about it, it intersperses interviews with both Diane Nash and Ben West. And it's really interesting the way each of them talks about how they're trying to empathize with the other one of them. So I think it's a really great way to show students how, even when it's like really controversial and there's protests going on, what happens when people stop and try to think from the other person's point of view. And then there's again, he links to this really great article, which Kira was just telling me about the other day, the whole conflicting philosophies of nonviolence versus self-defense within the movement. And it links to a book that you were just telling me about, Kira. This nonviolence stuff will get you killed, and links to that. So so that's
the book I'm currently reading. So
I know, when I saw that, I'm like, I wonder if Ken knew. And then of course we have additional ones on page 4. This one links to a lot of our materials on the Trail of Tears, because we have a lot of materials on those and are working on more. Women soldiers during World War II and resources for that. About Flag Day, and then of course more about the WPA posters, but also the World War I posters, of which the Library of Congress has a lot of amazing collections. So so yeah, I am going to stop sharing and throw it back to Kira for a while.
thanks, Stacy. So one of the things that I'll throw in there, especially about that video, this is where, again, I love being able to go back and highlight some things, because again, that video, unless you know that it exists within the exhibits, because that's part of, I believe, the exhibit around the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that it's there. And it is such an amazing teaching tool to have, to be able to use when you're looking at that standard that I think shows up in the high school US history course, is where that is at. There's probably a reference to it as well in the 5th grade, but I know it's in the high school standards. So for my pick, as I was thinking through what I wanted to focus on, Well, I couldn't narrow it down to just one thing. So I decided to really kind of highlight one of my favorite kind of categories of materials that we've created in recent years. And that is our close reading exercises. Because I think that again, it's real easy to forget sometimes, what some of the resources that we've, used in past years, if we don't have some reminders every once in a while. So to find these, you can, if you're on our webpage, you can click there underneath the tools for educators and you get this drop down menu and you will see that it is the second thing that is listed there. And so, this was a project that we started, in 2020, when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do in the midst of COVID. And so we had been talking with a lot of folks, prior to that who were really struggling with trying to figure out again, how do we, excerpt text and, at one, or we don't have time to do it. We're trying to figure out what excerpts we should use. The struggles of trying to use text sources in general with students, especially students who, are fourth and fifth grade students, or, our middle school kids, I mean, even some high school kids, but like, all of these struggles, whether it's just again figuring out what piece of a text we want to use or vocabulary or understanding what's going on once we actually get into the text. And so as we were sitting around again thinking about, what we could do to kind of shift some of our time and attention since we weren't doing in-person things, we decided to start working on creating these as a new tool. And again, we're thinking about what are some texts that show up in the standards or connect nicely with a standard that are available through the Library of Congress that we could really kind of again build something around that we thought would be useful to you guys. And so Stacy really kind of kicked us off with these and created, I think, the majority of them. So we have two for world history. So there is one for sixth grade that pulls an excerpt from the Iliad. There is one for Life of Charlemagne that will fall into the seventh grade standards. And then the rest of them are US history. And we do have them listed in chronological order. And so you can see there the dates listed. We have, there's poetry by Phyllis Wheatley, of course, the Abigail Adams letter where she says, "Remember the ladies," which is a fabulous text that a lot of folks like to use with students. There's stuff from the Constitution. One of my favorites, if I can move my bar so it's out of the way, um, is this letter, the letters exchanged between Benjamin Banneker and Thomas Jefferson. And so this is one, while all of these have a same general format, they are a little different depending on the grade level that they were written towards and who was the person who created it. And let me make this just a little bit bigger for you guys to be able to see. So with this one, you start out with some background, so just some general context, what was the document, who were the people. So again, here's Benjamin Banneker, who was a free Black man who lived in Maryland. He genius, was a mathematician, was into mechanics, astronomy, famous for his almanac. And of course, he exchanges some letters with Thomas Jefferson, challenging some of Jefferson's ideas about equality and, some of the things that Jefferson has said about, Black Africans not being able to have some of the same capabilities. So there is a version of this that is written for fourth grade, one written for eighth grade, and then there are some also resources for teachers. Now, for the fourth grade, you will see, again, these are very short excerpts from these letters. There are words that are bolded, and there is a vocabulary list because even, again, with the shorter excerpts, we knew there would be some language in here that students would really struggle with. And so this is one of the few places that we have where we actually create kind of some vocabulary list and try to help students really kind of just get a grasp around what are the meanings of some of these words that they're going to see. And so again, you have the exchange, the letter from Banneker to Jefferson, and then Jefferson's response. Now, for the eighth grade, and this is going to be more typical of what you are going to see with any of the close reads. Again, we have that excerpt. You'll notice again, this one is a longer piece that the eighth grade students are being given. And then you'll note here over here on the right-hand side that there are little blocks of information. So sometimes this is providing context for what is being said so students can understand what it is that people are talking about. Maybe it's an explanation of, some of the things that are being talked about in there. There might be other information that's linked that you will see. So again, this is meant to help students, as they're reading through this text, really get a sense of what is going on. Because again, a lot of times with text, if you don't understand the larger historical, context of what's going on, it's really difficult to get a full grasp on what is being talked about. And then we end with, some questions, some things for further thought. So again, easily something that you could take and build around. These are not meant to be kind of full lesson plans or anything like that. So again, there's, here, Vindication of the Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft, which falls into the world history standards for high school. This is a really fun one in that there's, well, I say it's fun because I always remember this is the one where we link to the story about the giant cheese wheel. So a random aside, but yeah. So again, where that phrase, a wall of separation between church and state, pops up is actually in another Thomas Jefferson letter in which he is writing to the Danbury Baptist. So you can see here is where I mentioned where there is a link to the story about the 1,200-pound wheel of cheese that was gifted to Thomas Jefferson while he was in the White House. Which you can't tell me that students wouldn't be interested in knowing about a 1,200-pound wheel of cheese. So again, there is that one. And then we go through again some other things that may pop up in your standard, James K. Polk and Manifest Destiny, excerpts from Frederick Douglass's autobiography. There are a few things, kind of legalese. So thinking about like excerpts from the Dred Scott decision, which again, this is like I did this one and I never realized how long this court decision was. It was hundreds of pages. And so again, figuring out ways to again excerpt that down to something manageable. And again, it's only about a couple pages. Lincoln Douglas debates, rag pickers, Ida B. Wells, James Weldon Johnson. So again, you can see there's a wide variety of topics that we cover with these. The furthest up that we go in history is Letter from a Birmingham Jail from Dr. King. So that gives you a sense of the types of things that you will find in the close reading exercises. A couple of other things that I want to note that fall under that same category of tools for educators that again, things that we maybe have used in years past, but maybe you've forgotten about, or maybe you have never had a chance to be exposed to them. We do have a number of content resources and essays. These are fabulous, 3 to 5 page typically essays that were developed around different topics. A lot of these are going to be Civil War related because many of them were created in the midst of the Civil War sesquicentennial that happened back, 2010 to 2015. Where each year we were doing a summer institute around a different theme. And so we would create these as part of the work for our summer institutes. So again, a lot of great information in here about Tennessee Civil War history. There's some good stuff on Reconstruction. This Reconstruction vocabulary list, if you teach Reconstruction, this is a fantastic tool. So definitely might want to take a look at that. And then some things that we link to from other websites as well. So again, some really cool things that are there. And then something else that we did that was a little different. We had a graduate student who worked with us a couple of years ago who started these I Didn't Learn That guides really as a weekly Friday Facebook post. And she put so much work into them that we really, we encouraged her to actually create these into larger guides that we could post on the website so they wouldn't kind of just be lost in Facebook. And so with these, she created these larger guides that are part kind of like supplemental information that you could work into your classroom. So this is the one that she did on women in the progressive era labor movement. So there's a little overview, links to where it aligns with curriculum standards. And then as she gets into it, she picked out different topics. And so she would write a little kind of summary blurb to tell you about it, link in things. Some of them have additional investigative questions. Some of them just have really cool links that will link you to places with other information. So here's a great piece that she did on Mother Jones. And you can see again links to other information from the Library of Congress. Here's a worksheet that you could do, or you could use this newspaper piece here with some investigative questions. So again, just kind of supplemental things that would kind of add flavor to what you have already in your textbook. And in your curriculum standard. So the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, the Library of Congress has a ton of stuff on this event. And I know a lot of people reference this as they're teaching the progressive era. So this is one that really may be very useful to you. But here's another one, the 1912 Lawrence Textile Bread and Roses Strike. Frances Perkins, who I know we did several things on her for a little bit. We were on a real Frances Perkins kick. Because again, she's a really influential figure in US history that doesn't get enough attention. So that kind of gives you a sense of these. So you see that there is one on African American contributions to the Civil War. We did one on Native American resistance, and then the Black abolitionist movement, as well as that one about women in the progressive era labor movement. And again, all these are meant to be, again, stories and pieces that you could pull in to, again, add a little more to what you're already doing or what's already in your textbooks. So the other thing that I want to highlight before I kind of turn things back to Stacy, our other graduate assistant who just started with us this summer and who will be with us in the fall, you will see him at a future Digging In webinar, is Ryder. And for his very first lesson idea in one of our newsletters, we decided to start him in on one of our staff favorite issues. He talked about American imperialism. And in this, one talking about imperialism, another favorite topic of mine, but he did a really great job of actually bringing in a lot of different resources that we've created over the years and really thinking about this big question about, well, when did American imperialism start? And when we talk about this, can we draw connections between all of these events into thinking about imperialism as part of an ongoing trend in American history, not something that just kind of falls into the late 19th century when we talk about Spanish-American War. And so, he has listed or has linked in here several different primary source sets. So there's this one on westward migration. There's another one that we did on American imperialism. He linked to this really great, let's see, are you going to open? This research guide about the Spanish-American War that the Library of Congress has. And so again, where you can get to digital collections, related online things. So there's a lot of good stuff in that one. He also linked to one of our new lesson plans that we just developed we didn't develop, we just posted over the summer. One of the teachers that we've been working with in Knox County created this lesson plan about colonization. And so back to the first page here. So this one, colliding colonies, contrasting European approaches to colonization in North America. So for those of you teaching 8th grade, just getting started, in your standards for the year, this is a great one as you are doing some of those early standards to take a look at. Again, this was created by an 8th grade teacher in Knox County, Jacob Ottinger. And so this one, why did Europeans colonize North America and why did their methods differ? He has a ton of great resources in here. There's several different handouts that are developed as part of this lesson plan. So again, definitely take a look at this. This is something that that falls in your curriculum. And then, Ryder linked to several other things, several things from the Jackson era. And we've got some things related to Andrew Jackson, Trail of Tears, migration, colonial America, and some other things. So again, just a ton of great stuff that's linked in here. And again, just kind of a little reminder, again, we have a ton of materials that we have developed over the course of our 14, 15 plus years of doing this program. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Stacy.
Okay, I'm just going to take you through a few more things that we highlighted in this issue and talk a little bit about some of the challenges of keeping our materials up to date, because I already noticed on one of the close reading exercises a link that we're going to need to update. And if any of you run across those when you're using our materials, please, please, we don't ever want that to be a reason why you give up on them. I know you don't have a lot of time. You may not even have time to email us and be like, what is the proper link? But if you do have time, let me just, remind you and reiterate that we will do our best to give you that updated link, or at least something similar to what we intended it to be at the time, because again, the Library of Congress website is massive and it's constantly updating itself, and sometimes that leaves us with links. And so one of the really cool resources that we linked to all over the place in the past over a lot of our materials, called America's Story from America's Library, that has disappeared. We don't know if it's going to reemerge in a new format on the library's website or not. And that had been one of the best resources for younger grades, particularly 3 through 5, because it was kind of a website within a website that had a lot of really great articles and primary sources on different topics geared towards young readers. And excuse me. And so one of the links on the Benjamin Banneker close reading exercise was to an article that was in America's Story that I realized we're going to have to go in and update at some point. So we do our best, but it's you know what it's like to have too many things on your plate. So hopefully you'll
Yeah, that site's been down now for over a
uh,
year, so I keep hoping that they will put up whatever the new version is going to be. But it's been a year of us waiting now to see what that new version is going to be.
so let me show you, for example, there, well, this is a way to talk about that, as well as talk about another set of resources that are our favorites and that we think are particularly helpful for you. And that is the grade level primary source sets that one of our graduate students created a few years back, that went through the Tennessee curriculum standards for each grade in social studies and tried to find resources that would fit as many of these standards as we could find. And so that can mean, like, for example, I'll go to 5th grade. That can mean a primary source image, and it often does, or it can be a link to a set of primary sources, such as this, or it can be a link to, for example, an exhibit like this one on Buffalo soldiers. This is actually a section within the African American Odyssey exhibit that we mentioned earlier. So lots of different things, but you can see right away we linked to these a lot because they were really nice little pieces. So wherever it says America's Story, like, oh, but now it just sends you, and it's been doing this for a year now, to resources for family engagement from the Library of Congress, which, the connection, I guess, being young, children who want to find things on their website. So basically they have, some cool stuff on here, but it's not something that you can really integrate into your classrooms very easily or quickly. So unfortunately, they have not updated that. We don't know where any of that stuff went. Sorry, we're even sadder about it than you are. But please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because a lot of the links are still going to take you to really great materials, such as this timeline, which this is another one of the links that we include on the page 2 important links box for this month's newsletter, because it is one of our favorite resources. the US history primary source timeline. And this has gone through some different kinds of manifestations, but they've kept it on their teachers page. So I'm very glad that they haven't jettisoned this really fantastic resource, because it provides really good and yet short kind of contextual essays um, that might supplement what you're already doing in your textbooks. And then it's already gone through all of the work of picking out, like, 5 to 7 pertinent primary source documents or images to go with. So for example, for the American West, they're talking about, the railroads and settlement and Native Americans and cowboys. And it's just a really short little essay, but that makes it something that you can actually read with your students during a class period. So I like that about it. It's not something that you necessarily have to have done outside of class time for homework. And then they have documents. And this is, some of them are images, but most of these will be, oh no, I can already tell this is American memory. So this one's not going to come up. So they haven't updated a lot of their links, but again, okay, this one will come up. Yay.
Yeah, sometimes those old American memories, like some of them still every once in a while will pop up.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, you just
And
sometimes you
some
have
of
to
them
click
will,
on them.
yeah, will bounce to a new
Mhm.
updated link because the materials still exist on their website. They've just been moved to a different collection. So here we are, within the exact page of the book that they want you to look at. So, and then of course, architecture, I'm guessing these are going to be images. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Look at that. And I remember driving into Denver too. It was like flat, 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 flat. And this is almost where my car died. But yes, this is a really great kind of look at Denver in the year 1898. So those are the types of primary sources that go along with these secondary sources. So I like the way that you have them together, because primary sources need secondary sources to help them make sense to students who maybe don't understand what context is yet, or they struggle with it. College students still struggle with it too. So I imagine that high school and middle school students are, they all need practice. So that is what the US history timeline is. And that's kind of an example of what these grade level resource guides are. So looking at another one of these links that I wanted to point out to you, well, there's 2 more that I would like to point out to you. One of them is the index of the research guides, and the other one is called Digital Inquiry Group, which I know it sounds like some sort of bland corporate whatever, but this is what the Stanford History Education Group is now. So they went through some rebranding and restructuring. But if you are a fan of reading like a historian, like I am, I'm a fan of anything Sam Weinberg has had a hand in. And they also have their Beyond the Bubble History Assessment site and their Civic Online Reasoning curriculum. They all still exist. They're just available through Digital Inquiry Group at inquirygroup.org, which I can never remember what the name of this is because it's so bland. So yes, I'm being a little critical here, but the materials are fantastic. And so if you click on reading like a historian, it's the same format that they had within their old website. So it's, if you're already familiar with how to find things or what your favorite materials are within there, it's still here. This is one of those things, though, that does require you to log in. It's free. But like, for instance, so if you want, you can find out what all of these things are about. But then if you want to download the worksheets or the materials or the posters, that's when you have to be a registered user. So if you're, you can actually find out exactly what you're getting before you even register if you're a little hesitant to do that, but it's really easy. So that's a website and a resource that we really, really like, and we're glad that it still exists. So one of our other favorite things to use and to link to, we're always linking to these. It's kind of off-putting though when you look at it on the page, like, especially if you, okay, so if you're at the Library of Congress homepage and you're like, okay, where are these? Oh, researchers. And you go to researchers and you're like, where are the research guides? Where are the research guides? Yeah, okay, they're right here, which is like incredibly hard to find unless you know exactly where to look. So that's one reason why we're always linking straight to them, because they're kind of hard to find when you're just trying to go there on like a logical route. And it takes a while to load. And so you can look at them by subjects, and a lot of the research guides are cross-listed under several different subjects. So these are not like counting all the separate ones that they have. So I know it's kind of daunting when they list 257 for history. So you might want to look at something that's a, you know, like African American studies, that's a bit more narrowed down, but not much. So that's again another reason why we're always linking to individual ones, because it's a little bit of a bear to try to find them, although you know you can search within them. So if we go to like American history, which is funny, American history is 522, but history has 257. I'll just leave that. Okay, so, and then like who has time to scroll down through all of these? And they're arranged by in alphabetical order, but the first word that, you know, dictates where it goes in alphabetical order is often like, you know, Colorado, you know, things that you might not think about. So yes, that's why we link to these through our resources all the time. If there is one of these that exists that is relevant, we will usually link to it. You don't necessarily have to look for it on your own, but they can be so helpful. Kira already showed you an example of this. It's got, you know, just a really quick intro, how to use the website, because the Constitution annotated, this is, you know, a part of the congress.gov website. And this is fantastic, but and it's usually pretty self-explanatory when you're using it. I just click around and kind of figure it out, click around and find out. But they do have an explanation for it. Okay, maybe this wasn't the best one to use. I'll go to a related research guide. So like Federalist Papers. All right, so this is usually what they have. They have the full text, related digital resources. So again, everything that the Library of Congress has that's related to this, they've already narrowed it down for you. Even those Today in History articles, they still exist. But that collection was also restructured. So some of our old links just take you to the Today in History and not the actual date within the Today in History. So you might have, if you're within Today in History, you might have to search on a specific date. So like December 15th will take you to December 15th, but just in case it took you to today's date, you just go on here and you like pick the actual date that is supposed to be. Okay, so those are really helpful again, because they also take you to external websites. So like, what do they have in other places that may be just as helpful, and where you can find some additional things. So that's good too. If your high school students are doing any research projects and they need to beef up their bibliographies, there's even a page of print resources that your local library may or may not have, but that they might need to find. So that all exists, and those are extremely helpful. And there's a lot more too, but I'm gonna, I think that I can, well, I might as well just say we have another link to our YouTube channel. Oh, and I will say that there's one or two YouTube videos that go along with the close reading exercises. I had planned on creating a whole bunch of these, but what can I do but shrug? One, maybe two were created One of them was rag pickers. And I
There's
think
also one
the
for the letter from
letter from
Birmingham jail.
Birmingham jail.
Yeah.
I knew that I had planned on doing that one. I just couldn't remember if I completed that one and posted it. So we do have two videos that basically walk you through how to use that close reading exercise that maybe, it'd be more engaging for your students to watch that instead of read it or something. If you want to emphasize either of those two primary sources in your classroom. As well as all of our other stuff. Okay, so yes, I am going to kick it back to Kira.
So as we get ready to wrap up, I want to mention also those research guides. If you have students who are doing History Day projects, those research guides are a fantastic tool to have them immerse themselves in as they get into the research process. When they are still figuring out how to narrow down their topic and they're looking for their sources, those can be really just an ideal place to send them for good material that's going to take them to trusted sites instead of them just, Googling and using Wikipedia and YouTube. So again, keep in mind that those can be just a fantastic source for students who are doing History Day.
And I do want to add, because I have been a History Day judge, if I see that students have used Library of Congress resources in their bibliography, I am extra impressed and so much likelier to rate that higher.
Well, not even just, again, the Library of Congress, yes, but then again, that external websites, having those listed there, and the print books, the fact that they list print books. And again, it's not that we expect students to go and read all of those books, but to take a look at them, to take a glance at some of the sources maybe that those books cited, can be a good way to really, again, help kids to understand the research process. So definitely, again, keep that in mind. We will be talking more about History Day next month. Our theme for next month is going to be Rights and Responsibilities, which is actually the History Day theme for the 2025 contest. So if that's something that you're interested in, we will talk more about it next month. And then our partner and the Tennessee State, our Tennessee History Day program is actually doing a starter pack webinar series that starts, I believe, today, because she's doing the second Thursday of the month as well. But you'll be able to catch hers recorded live. And so again, if you're interested in History Day, want some more information, we will link to that link to that webinar series, as well as again be talking about some stuff next month related to that. The other thing that I wanted to share with you guys before we get into kind of final things, Stacy mentioned early on, of course, the Tennessee Council for History Education Conference. That conference is taking place at the end of September. It's September 25th and 26th in Memphis. There is still time to register. We are also still accepting poster and breakout session proposals. So if you have a cool project that you've done with students that you would like to share, maybe kids have done History Day projects, you would like to share those. Maybe you have a lesson plan that you've developed and would like to make a poster presentation. Those are kind of ideal for that, again, as a way to share some of the cool things that are happening in some of our classrooms. There's information about the conference. We link to the website. It is tnche.com. And so you can go there to find information about the conference itself, registration, all of those kind of fun things. It is taking place at the Memphis Museum of Science and History, or if you're, like me, and I will forever think of it as the Pink Palace Museum. It is there in Memphis. It's a great museum to go visit. So if you've not had a chance, come to the conference, have a chance to visit the museum at the same time. Will be an evening event that is taking place that the UT Baker School is sponsoring with Dr. Stephen Knott. It's taking place on the evening of September the 25th, talking about the lost soul of the American presidency. So again, thinking about how the presidency has evolved from the beginning of the country's history to today. And then we will have Annie Evans, who is with, I'm gonna go blank for a second. She is digital humanities. Stacy, look it up for me real quick. So she's going to be there talking on the 26th about the importance of digital humanities as a way to, again, provide equity.
Okay, I'm going to, oops. I'm going to read what it says. She's the Director of Education and Outreach for New American History at the University of Richmond.
So they are the ones who do that really cool map that we looked at before on redlining. That is some of their projects. So they do some amazing digital humanities, digital history work. So again, I can't wait to hear her presentation and again, see some of the cool stuff that they've been doing. So if you have any questions about that conference, you can feel free to reach out to me, or again, you can just visit the website, that is tnche.com. So as we wrap here, again, here is the link to the Padlet. We will be including a couple of the links of things that we've mentioned today, as well as we already have the newsletter posted there. If you are interested in getting PD credit for today, be sure to complete the form that's here. You can use either the QR code or the link. For those of you attending live, Stacy's going to drop that in the chat box. We do generate these manually, so I usually check this about once a week. So once you get it completed, know that it can take up to a week for me to get the form sent out to you. We will be back next month on the second Thursday, which is September the 12th. And like as I mentioned, our topic for next month will be rights and responsibilities. For October, we are going to be doing history as storytelling. And we've got a cool new resource that we're going to be highlighting as part of that newsletter. So if you guys have any questions, suggestions for us, again, please let us know. We want to make sure that, the things that we're creating are helpful to you guys. And so we'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much for your time today and hope you're having a great first week.